Welcome back to Supply Chain Africa News. My name is Wanda Wanyama, and we are still with Miss Phoebe Kungu. What's one thing that you ever wished someone could have told you before you joined supply chain?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question. I think I have two.
Make it free.
So when I started, especially in procurement, one of the things I quickly noticed was the issues around expectations of collusion, corruption, kickbacks. Because it was a little bit confusing for me because there's a lot of scrutiny that goes into the procurement process. It's not a one-man process when you're buying something. So you have to have other people in the committee to review the bids, to make decisions. You have specific controls. There's clear segregation of duties. But when I started, I was like, so why do we have to have several people responsible and involved in the discussions on which supplier to select? But I very quickly learned that even as the competition is pretty high, and there's always that tendency, someone thinks, okay, I can be able to get ahead or get a contract if I give some kickbacks. And for me, I made a decision at that time. It's a moral decision to actually say, you know what, I'm just going to stick with the policies and procedures and follow them through. That the pressure is there. The pressure is there, and you have to be very strong from an ethics standpoint to be able to manage that situation. And also, just having an organization that doesn't support or has zero tolerance to collusion, corruption also does help as well. Because if incidences are found, they're properly investigated. And nowadays, even suppliers are being blacklisted. I mean, if you're found to be culpable, it's not just the procurement person, it's also the company. And so if a company has good business going with that organization, the last thing they want to do is actually to introduce or to ask for collusion, corruption. But sadly, it's something that is happening quite a lot, right? We see it in the news all the time. So that was the first shocker for me, and something that I really had to work through. It's really an internal ethical issue for yourself, to make that moral decision to be straight and to follow the rules and to be compliant. The second thing that I came to learn when I joined the humanitarian sector is, you work in very difficult environments. There are instances where I would find myself sleeping in a little tent in the night. It's darkness everywhere. You just have this very hot. In fact, I think most of the places I've been to have been very warm, not cold at all. But pretty insecure places, very uncomfortable places that you sleep in. You just feel it's not home. It's not home, and there's a risk there. If you don't take care of yourself, there's a risk of getting burned out. And so I had maximum respect for those people or staff who are actually based there. Like, their job is to stay there and deliver on programs under very, very difficult environments and situations. So that's the other thing that I had to learn. So it was not, a bed of roses. Like, someone hears that you've been to a place like Indonesia, Bangladesh, Tanzania, wherever. Yes.
I think you just enjoy traveling.
It's not fun and games. It's really real hard work. You really have to love what you're doing to be able to do that job. You really have to have that passion to want to give, to want to make a difference, for you to be able to work in that environment.
In your point number one, you talked about corruption.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so deep-rooted? Like, there is not any single conversation people can have about supply chain without talking about corruption.
I think it's something that has been accepted as the norm, that if you want to get ahead, you have to pay a kickback. That is not true. It is not true. And also, it's something that has manifested. True, there are some people who do that, and some people who actually benefit from that environment. Now, the sad thing is, if it's in the humanitarian sector, which I am in, that is money that should actually have gone to supporting someone who is truly in need. Yeah, really. It's a survival thing for them to get that food or to get that shelter or to be educated or to get medicine. So if you take that money or if you don't follow the right processes, if you order things, they don't get delivered, you pay the supplier, you get your kickback, you have denied the person who really needs it the most. So there's that perception that you can only get ahead as a supplier or get a contract if you give kickbacks. That's one. Number two, I think it's a greediness. We are there for me. The level of selfishness that you want to grab as much as possible. You want to enrich yourself as quickly as possible. If you're in procurement, I think if that is that's the way you're conducting yourself, you're actually spoiling for everyone else who is pretty straight, who is straightforward, who wants to do right and to do the right things. So for me, I think there's no other way of looking at corruption. It just denies those most in need to benefit and to actually survive. And it's really a moral issue. It's a humanitarian issue. And it's something that I personally worry about all the time. It's very disconcerting to be in procurement and you're seeing all these things and you're all branded as people who want to get kickbacks, which is not true. We have pretty good people who really want to do the right thing.
When you talk about moral issues, probably also the societal expectations that you're practicing supply chain.
Yes, there's that expectation, but we can change the mindset. We can change the narrative. It doesn't have to be the status quo.
Are you proud when you walk in a room and introduce yourself? Hey, I'm Phoebe. I'm a supply chain officer.
I am proud because I've worked hard to be where I am, right? And deep inside, I do know that I'm here to do it and to do the right thing in the right manner. I have skills, I have knowledge, I have understanding of what is good and what is bad within the profession. Now, there are instances where mistakes are done in an organization, even where I work with my colleagues. They could make a mistake, award a contract, due diligence was not done properly, maybe the vetting process was not complete, and then you have issued a contract, the supplier doesn't deliver, and then there's a problem. So there's that level of ignorance that can happen, but it can happen in any profession. What that means then, as a leader in supply chain, I want to be sure that when you start doing procurement as a staff, that you have the right skill set. It's no longer those days that supply chain was considered, an administrative function that someone can come from wherever with whatever qualification and actually practice supply chain. Now we're looking at people who have full understanding about the risks they're managing in supply chain. And supply chain is not the traditional supply chain that we used to know before. It's becoming more complex. There's high expectations. First of all, I just talked about the context in which we have to practice, but I'm also thinking about, the evolution of procurement. Even with COVID time, for example, in this time, we are working more remotely. So we want to work with suppliers who are more responsible, more responsive. What that means is that we have to get better at due diligence of our suppliers. We have to get better at utilizing technology in order to deliver on supply chain. So the supply chain function is changing and we have to change with it. So I think we have pretty good, hardworking professionals in supply chain who deliver, who have a genuine interest to actually make good and deliver on supply chain. But also, we cannot root out those ones that are in it to enrich themselves. And that's a sad state. That's a sad fact that we have.
You've practiced for over 20 years. Why supply chain?
Well, first of all, it's like I said, when I started, actually, when I was a young girl, I wanted to be in the hospitality industry. And I Italy, I registered, I think I went to an interview and I failed. And I think that for me was a blessing in disguise. True. It was a blessing in disguise because when I joined ICRC, actually I was joining for a short-term contract of 1 month, but I never left until 9 years. And what I liked most is the impact that I was seeing to what I was doing. It was not just practicing supply chain, it's the why. Why was I doing it? And just looking at the smiles of the children, the smiles of the women, and just alleviating suffering, for me, touched me to the core. And this is why I said, you know what, I want to do it better, and I don't want to do it well. And that's how I went back to school. And that's why, I put in a lot of effort. I continue to learn about it. I continue to do the right thing, and just making sure that we are actually making a difference to those people who are in need. And we call them our client. We stop calling them beneficiaries. We don't brand them like that. We call them clients. And those being our clients, they are quite important to us. And so we have to provide the right service for them, and we have to listen to them about what their needs are. Yeah, so I have a passion in supply chain, and I don't think I would, if I were to start all over again, I would probably just be in supply chain. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We are going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, you will talk about the biggest failure and what did you learn.